Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, one is star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. It is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. And cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs a 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right under Jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just a perfect day. It's just a perfect day. Na, 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 na,
Hey everybody, welcome back to Eggs. This week we have special guest Matthew Yahes. Matthew is the founder and CEO of ExtendYourTeam.com, a company whose focus is to connect U.S. companies with the very best remote talent from around the world. Their team will connect your business to talented, distributed staff to support a broad range of needs across your business. From operations and customer service to bookkeeping and e-commerce, whatever you need, they have you covered. As a business owner himself, Matthew has a kind of empathy for those he engages with, which allows him to source the best talent to get the job done, understanding the needs of business people. Joining us today to discuss why someone might want to hire remote talent, the struggles inherent in hiring and finding the right people in your business, overcoming fear of outsourcing, and so much more, please join us in welcoming to the show, Matthew Yahes.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. Well, I think we did a little bit of coverage in the introduction of what you do, but why don't we talk a little bit about you? And let's start there. So tell us who you are, what you do, and why we're talking.
Yeah, so my name is Matthew Yahes. At this point, I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I didn't start out that way. I had a traditional background. I'm a fairly good snowboarder. I'm a terrible kiteboarder. And I like to travel with my wife whenever possible outside the pandemic. That's really me as a person. I would say that, my background is the story of entrepreneurship. Highs from, playing fetch with Steve Wynn's dog in his casino office to lows in the middle of the pandemic having to pivot because I'm in the wedding business on another business I own. And that just obviously is on, like I like to say, pause.
Right. Well, yeah, no, I think that's great. I also think, it's particularly interesting, the line of work that you're in right now, where you're, helping outsource remote talent for teams. Seems like that's a perfect sort of opportunity to be working on these days. I mean, if weddings are on pause, one thing that isn't is business by remote. And so I wonder if you talk a little bit about how you got into that line of work.
Sure. So about 5 years ago, I bought an e-commerce portfolio. So instead of buying a single site, I decided, hey, I'm going to buy 3 of them at the time, all at once, and start running it. And don't necessarily recommend it if you don't have experience, but I did it anyway. Let's just say I have an overabundance of confidence where sometimes it's not warranted. So at first it was always a fully remote team. So the people were at the time in Minnesota, and through attrition and otherwise, I started moving workers to the Philippines. And, there's this journey that everyone I know who outsources goes on, which is, I am going to go get someone for a few dollars an hour in another country, and they're going to change my life. It's just not true, right? I mean, it happens to not be true, but it really is this myth that it can be done. But so I started just like that. And through it, through the process, and through some, I'll say, coaching for my wife, I ended up hiring someone to run the entire business, which at the time was doing 4,000 orders a month.
Oh, wow.
And so, sizable business, thousands of orders. And I ended up hiring someone there to essentially run all operations for me. She worked for a 100-person company As chief of staff, I convinced her to work for my at the time, 6-person company. Now it's, I think, 10. And I went from working and for years, I was getting crushed. I mean, honestly, it was terrible, right? I was working 14-hour days, and it's no exaggeration, right? And I think all of us here and your listeners know, or your viewers know, that just puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on your relationships and your life, right? And so but I went from working 14 hours a day to 3 hours. And now I only oversee the business. And I did that within 45 days, by the way, that transition. And now a year or so later, maybe a year and a half, I'm like 2 hours a week and just overseeing the business. So as I mentioned in the opening, in the pandemic, I'm in weddings, right? So I have 4 sites now, 2 are in weddings, and one of them is about 80% of the revenue. And the pandemic came, and boom, that's it. First day, I remember this was March 14th or 15th when they announced the closing of the European border, so the European travel ban. Business was down 95%. It was fine. I was killing it before that. It was going to be a banner year.
Yeah, I don't know.
95%.
I don't know if you know much about me and what I do. I actually DJ and provide entertainment for weddings, and I had 2020 was lined up to be one of the best seasons I've had in a long time. Banner year, and it all went away. And I've actually had 2021. I've lost 3 weddings now. Have canceled for this upcoming summer, and so I feel your pain. So but there's nothing you could have done, right? There's absolutely nothing you as an entrepreneur could have done. Yeah. Realistically. I mean, you DJ a remote wedding? Not really, right? It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah. So it does not exactly have the same ring to
it. So you had to transition over before COVID hit. You had transitioned over to having an assistant based out of the Philippines. You said your wife consulted you on that. Is she Filipino?
No, I said my wife, coached me or encouraged me. What happened was,
all right. I was like,
very different.
She turned you on to like a Filipino. I actually lived in the Philippines for a while. So I've been there and know how it works.
Yeah. So are either of you married?
Yeah.
Ryan is.
Okay. So you're going to appreciate the story. So what happened was we were going to China on a family vacation, and she said to me, we were going with her parents, I hope you don't work on this vacation, and it's not really a request, right? It's like, this is what you're going to do. She goes, go find someone in the Philippines to run your business. I go, honey, I love you, but I know a lot of people who offshore. I don't know one person that hires real talent out of the Philippines. And she looked at me like with the, hey, you dummy, my poor spouse, look, it's a country of 100 million people. That's like an idiotic thing to say. Like, there are people that can do this, right? Just by nature of it being a large country, right? So there's one person, right? So I spent 2 months actually looking for Angelica, interviewed probably 100 people. Reviewed a ton more, and, found her and just convinced her to come work for me. And so it really all started because my wife said, we're going on vacation and you're not working. And that was the end of that.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, I can think of, in my sort of entrepreneurial journey, I can think of, no less than 100 trips or family whatevers or this or that's where, I'm getting the stink eye from my wife because I'm on the laptop or, on my phone or whatever. And, literally down to sitting out with my toes in the sand on the beach, but with my laptop in my lap. And, so I too have sort of backed off quite a bit, especially as I've gotten a little bit older and now I have a couple of boys. And so it made sense to back off, but it's, it's definitely one of those challenges that when you've got to deal with the needs of a spouse or needs of a family, it's tough to keep up that entrepreneurial, drive.
In a lot of ways, I do think that it's a forcing mechanism that's an advantage. So what I think, what I realize now, and I knew then, but I know intellectually, is that like what my value is, like my value, I have to focus my time, and my time should be spent on high value, high growth things that make you money. right? That's really what I should be doing. Everything else someone should do. And I had a team, and they were just sucking up my time. And I just realized that it's just now, upon reflection, it was just a big waste of effort on my part for 3.5 years until I found Angelica, that I shouldn't have been doing a lot of things. And I think as entrepreneurs, by the way, that was my second business. I think as entrepreneurs, we just have a lot of us, at least for me, have a tendency to get sucked into things that just are not important and don't move the needle because you like to do it, right? I like optimizing. It's fun for me.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, most people, or a lot of entrepreneurs anyway, I mean, some might be more strategic and just chase the dollar from the jump, but most of them are doing something they enjoy. And when you're doing that, it's sort of a trap, right? It's this double-edged sword that yes, you enjoy what you're doing, but then it doesn't feel like work. And when it doesn't feel like work, it's easy to work all night. And, and I think that that's an important thing to try and avoid, or, figure out how to optimize or work through anyway.
Yeah, because you find something interesting, right? For me, it's just optimizing the business and finding cool ways to squeeze out more dollars. I mean, I was a management consultant, I was a technology consultant, and it's just tinkering and this kind of stuff is fun for me, right? So I just would do this all the time. And ironically, as a consequence, a lot of things would break because it was a business built on, the duct tape from an infrastructure standpoint. And so when I would start to pull the thread to fix things, all these things would come out. And what I realized is that stop, right? I'm just causing myself more problems. And so I stopped it, and then I hired someone, and frankly, the business ran better. She hired better, right? I now had, Filipinos hiring Filipinos, which is just better. And,
sure.
All these things that I did not like to do were being done better. And, you come to the conclusion that we're just not special, right? There are people who can do the same job as you for the most part, and it's fine.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right too, that, a lot of what hiring is trying to find people to do the things that you're not that good at. I come from an advertising marketing background, and my skills are, the things that I'm good at are, art direction, creative direction, running these little creative teams and things like that. But in terms of actually running the business, that's not my strength at all, so it's a total slog. Everything is hard. I end up screwing things up a lot, all that stuff, because that's not my strength. And so, in almost in the same type of situation that you're describing, for me to either, hire or outsource or bring on somebody to kind of run the operational aspects of the business so that I can just focus on the things that I'm good at, isn't a bad idea, really.
Absolutely. And one of the things that people tend to not realize, everyone's like, well, it's a lot of money. Sort of. Yes, it's an investment, but if it frees you up to make more money, it's not a lot of money, right? When you start outsourcing, I think one of the things that people think about is they look at the total number. It's, $30,000 or $40,000 a year. True, in an absolute sense, right? But let's just say it's $3,000 a month, right? And well, after a few months, you should have freed yourself up so you could focus on a higher value activity, which will most likely generate more income for you. And you should pay for it. It should pay for itself. And as long as it's paying for itself and your life's easier, it's a home run. And you didn't invest $40,000. You invested the amount of money until you broke even on the investment, meaning you were able to grow by $3,000 in profit a month. Therefore, let's say that's month 3. At month 3, yes, you invested $6,000 or $9,000, but now it's free and your life's better.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, it's funny. I don't think people think of, hiring people or outsourcing in the way that you're talking about, the same way that we think about, buying a product cheap and then reselling it at retail, buying something wholesale and then reselling it at retail. Really all of our capitalism is sort of based on the same concept, right? In this case, you're talking about, you bring on a human being, a person who you pay X number of dollars for, but in theory, you can then, it sounds bad to say resell that person, but you can resell what their value is for more than you're paying for it, which is essentially how business works. So it's interesting that people can be so obstinate or sort of lean back against outsourcing or looking overseas for support, when the reality is, it's no different than buying a widget at wholesale and then reselling that widget.
Right. And actually, just to think about it, you're actually buying the widget at wholesale. You're just buying it at at retail. You're just paying market rate in another country. Right. Mm-hmm. And so pre-pandemic, I've been working this way for years for my own business, but pre-pandemic, a lot of businesses said, I have to be in the office and you do too. And there's a lot of value. Now we have a mass experiment in remote work. And it turns out that work can get done pretty well in most cases when you never see people, right? So if that's the case, what's the difference between San Francisco and Dayton, Ohio, or Dayton, Ohio, and Davao in the Philippines, right? Like there is no difference. So you can argue time zones, but what if people are working your time zone? That's what my team does. So when you start eliminating these things, it opens up a whole nother world of professional talent that you can get at prices that you can afford, right? Most people in the United States would say, whoa, if I can get someone for $18 an hour who can help run a business, like legitimately, I can offload tasks, yeah, hands down. But you can only do that. You can't do that in the United States, right? You just can't. I mean, fast food pays 15 to 18 an hour in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just doing some arbitrage and thinking differently, and it will absolutely, it impacted my business in a dramatic way.
So why the Philippines? I mean, you could outsource to India, you could outsource to Germany, you could outsource to all these different places. Why did you go with the Philippines?
That's a great question. So the Philippines has a culture of outsourcing already. So the largest companies in the world all do business process operations, so back office administration in the Philippines. And they do that because there's American style English. You can get minimal accents, education levels fairly good. And they've created this culture of a 24-hour workforce, right? So for operations, this already exists. All I'm doing as an entrepreneur is leveraging the same approach as these multi-billion-dollar nationals and applying it for my own business. So so there are all these people who've worked at these BPO companies who are happy to work for you. And there's a large culture of outsourcing already. So it makes it simple. Why India versus the Philippines? That just happens to be where a lot of operations people are, and the people I know have experience with. But I'm sure there's talent in India, right? And I'm sure you can play the arbitrage game as well in India. It's been done for years with technology, with engineers. But there's no, in the Philippines has tended more to be operations than technology.
So I would say too, even in my limited experience, working with companies who outsource like this, I have come across companies that utilize Philippine talent more than once. And I think that or at least in the creative space, the big draw is exactly what you said. It's, their understanding of sort of American culture. I've heard that it has something to do with Air Force bases and learning English and watching American TV. So culturally, their design work looks more like the design work of an American designer versus, for example, if I've outsourced out of China or India or Pakistan, places like this, their style is different. The way they do design work is different than what you would get from like an American designer, for example.
Well, while I was there, I experienced this firsthand. When I was learning Waray, which was the dialect that they spoke in that area, all the kids that were going to school were learning English from day one. So they were learning how to speak English since the first day of school. And as I was learning their dialect, they would want to talk to me in English so that they could practice English. And it was really quite interesting to see, how it works. And then pretty much if you go to the Philippines, anyone that's over 18 or 20, that age range has a pretty good understanding of English unless they're way off in the middle of nowhere. Bigger cities like Manila and Cebu and cities like that, a lot of people speak English fairly well. When I was, it was 2001, 2002-ish, there was a lot of internet cafes, and you would go into the internet cafe and they'd have the front section was where you could rent a computer to get online, and the back area, there was 30, 40, 50 computers of people just sitting there programming or working on Adobe or working on, they had a whole team of people set up for outsourcing, just like what you're doing. And I could see how working in a place like the Philippines, the English dialect is already there. The education's already there. They've been doing it for 20 years now, at least that I know of, with programming. So I could see how that would work out well for you. Does the exchange rate play a factor for you? Because I know that when I was there, the exchange rate was almost 98 pesos per US dollar. Right now, I think it's sitting at 48. And if you're in the Philippines, a peso will actually go a lot further than you would think. So if you're paying someone 48, 50 pesos per hour or 100, however it works, what you're paying them, that amount in pesos goes a lot further than that amount in a US dollar. So it really helps their economy out and helps bring them up at the same time. How has that worked with you in your business?
Sure. So it's a great question. So one of the things that we do is, typically speaking, for my agency business, when someone comes to work for us, they're getting anywhere from a 10 to 20% raise automatically, because it's just by nature of they want to increase their salary, we do it. Or we don't really negotiate salaries. So if they want to raise because that's what they want, that's fine. It's my job as an entrepreneur to say it's worth it or not. And how this plays into effect, it's not so much the exchange rate. I would say it's the market rate for talent in that country, right? So we are paying market rate or above market rate for a specific level of talent, which is pegged to what they get paid in the Philippines. For example, if I hire a senior manager out of a BPO company, business process outsourcing company, to come work for a client, well, my salary I need to pay him is pegged against what they're actually getting paid now. And then we just translate that into dollars, right? So, everything we do is pay, and this is just common in the industry, is pegged to dollars. Okay. So if it fluctuates, the interest rate fluctuates, they're still getting pegged to dollars, right? It's it's very stable, right? So if all of a sudden the peso is worth half as much, they're still getting paid in dollars, right? As opposed to pesos, you don't have that. You have an issue because now you can buy half as much. But it is true that, peso for peso, it goes much further in the Philippines than it would, translate to dollars.
I remember we had house cleaners that would come and work for us part-time, and we paid her, I think it was like $100 a month, and that covered doing everything. It's ridiculous how much a dollar will go there and what we'll actually buy. Can you tell me what kind of services or what kind of professionals we can hire from your site? I've seen bookkeeping on there. I've seen different services that you guys specialize in. If I were to hire a bookkeeper in the Philippines, can I trust them?
Oh, 100%. My bookkeeper's in the Philippines. And that's for my, 7-figure e-commerce business. Listen, I can't tell you that it would never happen. I've not encountered dishonest people in that way, where I'm worried about they have access to credit cards, things of that nature. I just haven't encountered, and of course things can happen. They're incentivized to keep their job and to do a good job because you've created a good work environment. I think that's the most important thing people need to remember. Right? They're not incentivized to steal. They're incentivized to feed their families and to just do the right thing. And
I wouldn't necessarily be worried about now that you brought it up, but that wasn't really my concern, the nefarious nature of someone stealing my identity. Right. What would concern me more is, do they know tax rules? Do they know proper accounting procedures? Do they know, am I going to get my reports back at the end of the year and have it all completely messed up because they didn't really know what to do in the US versus the Philippines? Yeah.
So so let's just go down this bookkeeper path, right? So you will have bookkeepers that know how to do US books, but you still, just generally speaking from a financial perspective, you still need an accountant or someone else to review. And that person shouldn't be you, to review to make sure there are things you didn't miss. Like, did they code something? Is the balance sheet off because they coded something, right? So you still need to have someone check it, and then you have books delivered that are correct, right? So you still need to do that. But they have people who have been doing US books for years. We find, like, our bread and butter actually is what I would call the chief of staff or business manager, where we find someone, and you can think of it as a project manager or EA on steroids. It's someone who can take off 80% of the tasks on your plate, run all the operation, help you run operations, and you can get what I get every single morning, which is I have two businesses, right? I get a Slack message with an overview of what's going on in each business. Here are all the different areas, marketing, inventory for my e-commerce business, sales, any, employee issues for my as an agency. And here's what you need to do also. So she says, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to do. That's what I need from you because you're a roadblock. I do this and I go about my day, right? And so what she's doing is quarterbacking my entire business for me, which all of a sudden, so now I can do high value things like talk to both of you. And I don't have to worry that, someone didn't do this project or there's a client issue. She's overseeing all of it. And now only when it raises to the point that it requires my attention, am I aware of it. Right, which is how most larger businesses function. But I'm doing it at a microcosm at my scale, just applying that. So we can find people like that. We find general virtual assistants. They can do social media, Facebook, the graphics, those type of people that I would say are the next level down, where they're generalists and can do a lot of the things you would need. Let's say for this podcast, you can find podcast managers, you can find experts in Amazon. We just placed 2 people with Amazon pay-per-click experience, so Amazon advertising, Facebook advertising. You can find all these people because the truth is the back end of many businesses that it's already in the Philippines. Yeah. Facebook, Google, they're all there already. And you're just tapping into that network.
So could I possibly hire a personal assistant that could answer calls, make calls, do stuff like that? Or is it mostly online?
No, absolutely. My customer service team for my e-commerce business is in the Philippines.
Okay.
My chief of staff, I have I have 2 people out of 66. One is in Colombia, one is in the Ukraine, but everyone else is in the Philippines.
Interesting.
And they're from, many people, if you met my chief of staff, you would not know she's not from the United States. You wouldn't know. It's just, I think, a prejudice that many of us in the United States have. Like, we can't imagine that, that people have excellent English overseas. They are as competent and all these things. I just think we don't, in the United States, we have a very US centric view, but the truth is all over the world, not just the Philippines, there are incredible professionals who are just want to work and are eager to be loyal to a company and love working for the people in the United States.
Okay. So I wonder if we could go down the path, maybe like a little virtual journey of how this might work. So first of all, maybe we take your experience and sort of, let's begin with, at what point do we know that we need some help, right? Because like we were talking earlier about entrepreneurs wearing many hats and doing all the things we do, at what point or what did it take or should it take for us to recognize that it's time to bring on some help and make the decision to outsource?
I would say at the point where you just even have this thought that, my God, I'm getting sucked into things and it's stopping me from doing more client work or growing my business. If you think you're being held back by any stretch of the word, then you should go hire somebody with if, ands, or buts. Take 80% of the items off your plate, divide your day into two columns, strategic and tactical. Strategic is anything that requires your thought or your experience. A sales call, right? That's strategic, right? And you can actually even outsource that. But let's say, the client work, that's strategic. Tactical is everything else. So onboarding a client, certainly managing your email, but managing sales flow, like protecting, protecting you from the world. So everything that bubbles up to you is higher value. Managing projects, all these things are not high value tasks that should be outsourced to a new team member. And depending on who you are and where you are financially in the cycle, I would say the second you have any sort of real work, go get someone to do, go get someone else on your team so you can start, delegating so you can go faster.
Okay. And what does that relationship look like? So for example, if somebody was to engage with a team like yours, yep. I mean, do you have a pool of professionals that you are using? And these are people who are in your employ in the Philippines, for example, or is your team more of I guess for lack of a better term, like a recruiter, like you then go to the Philippines and find people to fill these roles?
So the answer is actually it's both. So we're building a bench. So for perspective, I started this agency business in May. And, we're scaling extremely quickly, right? So by the end of this year, my guess is we'll have about 150 people. And so we're building a bench, right, of people that we've talked to, we've interviewed 3 times and we like. And we're also doing bespoke, but if we don't have someone we like who we've interviewed, we then do a bespoke search for you. So for your $18 an hour employee, we're actually doing a search like if they were 150,000. Actually headhunting, recruiting, and it'll take, a few weeks. Then, we find them, you interview them, you like them, great. If not, then, we tell us why and we go adjust and go find someone else for you. And we just, repeat the process. Typically speaking, we get it right the first time, to be honest with you, because we know the profiles. It's really only 5 or 6 profiles we're typically looking for. And at this point, we know, as well as people are going through 3 interviews before they even see the client. Right. It's not like a headhunting agency. We're like, oh yeah, here you go. No, we're actually interviewing for your specific role.
And how could somebody, for example, somebody tries to engage with you guys, maybe looking for their own Angelica, who was your chief of staff or your operations manager that you came across that was your perfect fit. If somebody's looking for somebody like that who can maybe resurrect a business or save a business or, take a business that's not doing much and get it moving forward, like, how do you find that individual? Like, hey, if I came to you and just said, okay, well, here's all my problems. I mean, do you try and fill that with an individual, or do you try and hire a team, or like, how would you, I guess, address, some small business that's on the grow and needs support maybe across sales and operations and sort of all these different buckets?
Yeah. So what we do is we only do full-time hires. And the reason I do this is because you can get the best people. If it's a part-time hire and it's only, 20 hours a week, guess what? They're getting a full-time job also. So now your stuff comes forth, right? It's just, you're not going to be the highest priority. But I would sit down with the client and I just talk to me about your business. I'm coming from the perspective of an entrepreneur where I run an e-commerce business like this. I have I've started other companies. And so I'm looking to say, okay, well, here's all the challenges you face. Let's bucket the tasks. And maybe, it's one person. There are times when I tell people there are no unicorns. If you want to be a unicorn, find a unicorn, go pay $400,000, right? Because they exist, but they cost $400,000. So for what you want, like if you wanted someone who's an engineer, we don't do engineering, but let's say you wanted someone who knew engineering and could oversee an engineering team and oversee a marketing team. And it just doesn't exist, right? It's not. So I would say, okay, that's 2 people or that's 3 people. Typically speaking, most people have a list of I must have and a list of it's nice to have. And so we try to nail all the must haves in one person. And then from there, the team develops a profile, sends it back to you. We do it like, you approve the job description. Then we go out and we start sourcing if we don't have them in the database. So
I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
And I don't want you to take this wrong, but
you're not going to hurt my feelings.
You've brought up $18 an hour a few times now. Is that about an average price that I would pay to hire someone?
So I would say it depends. If you want someone to help run your business, 16 to 18.
Okay. In the U.S. right now, we don't even have a minimum wage of $15 an hour. Couldn't I just go and hire someone for $12 an hour as a personal assistant here stateside that I would have working my normal hours?
I mean, could you? Of course you could. But so by the way, these people will work your hours, just so we're on the same page. But of course you could. But what level of experience are they going to have?
I guess that's the point, right? Is that you might get a higher level candidate for that 12 to 16 bucks an hour or whatever in the Philippines versus, the skill level that somebody who might take a $12 an hour job here in the States would have.
Yeah. And it's just, you're talking about people with, 10 to 20 years experience in like helping businesses versus, someone it's $12 an hour in the United States is not someone who's going to help you run your business. Right now, if you're saying like, I just need an assistant to do some email, maybe. Right. But if you want someone to like higher level thinking, a wide scope of tasks, oversee projects, including international contractors, and really just get you out so you're protected, you're not going to find anything like that in the United States below maybe 35 an hour. Like realistically, even when you start talking about like go to the Midwest or things like that, it just doesn't, it's in my experience, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. I personally would like to see, more jobs stateside and trying to help our own economy. But at the same time, I completely understand that, outsourcing, you not only have a better quality candidate for a little bit less, but you're also not necessarily stuck with providing benefits and paying taxes and providing all that other stuff for that person as well. How does that work? Does that come into play?
It absolutely comes into play. So don't forget, whatever salary you pay someone in the United States, if they're an actual employee, you have to add 20% for benefits and taxes. That's roughly, it's 20 to 30%. But right. So if you're paying someone $30 an hour, you're actually paying them 36, right? That's roughly how it works. And, and now you have also employment laws and things like that. Instead, you're using a service like let's say like mine, or you're contracting with someone directly, and it's just a typical contractor arrangement, right? In our case, we pay for benefits. We pay for healthcare, medical, dental, life. We pay for internet, to make sure the high-speed internet. We ask clients pay for 1 week vacation plus US holidays off. And we have a support system to actually support you. So there's like infrastructure there, but the day you're done is the day you're done. And you just get the balance of your money back for the month. Versus in the United States, there's a whole other level of things that you need to do, right? This is a contracting arrangement. You don't have to worry about all these other things that in the United States. I mean, I understand what you're saying about things stateside, right? But the reality of the global business market is someone comparable is probably going to be up $80,000 to $150,000 in the United States of what you're going to pay 16 to 18. It's a third of the cost.
Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting too, and maybe the pandemic proved this out a little bit. I spent a lot of time in and around the remote working space and doing a little bit of consulting on remote work and that sort of thing. And one of the things that I've sort of discovered is this sort of concept of this global economy. In the, small version of it, or one version of it is, of course, you want to have the tax base in your own country and you want to do that kind of thing. But if you flip it around, instead of looking for an opportunity here, you're just providing an opportunity for another human being. Right. This is another person. Maybe they don't live here. Maybe they weren't born here. Maybe whatever. But nonetheless, it's an opportunity for somebody. So why is that person less? How is that person somehow less because they were born somewhere else? And so I think it's really important, especially as we start to shift, right now during pandemic to more online, but whatever comes after. I think that the ease or the comfort with which we hire people from other countries is going to just continue to increase and keep getting better.
In my opinion, and companies will now be built with a component of a remote workforce overseas. I think the next generation of entrepreneurs, that's how they're thinking. Well, you look at a city like San Francisco where it's expensive and it's just, the salaries are expensive, the housing is expensive, all these things. Many companies are moving to, let's say, Austin, or they're saying, well, why don't I hire someone in Austin or in, Des Moines to work for us? I can tap that, have them work remotely, still be US if that's what they want. And that's great. I'm still in San Francisco, but now my dollars go further. Or if you're starting out, anywhere, it just makes your dollars go further. And if you want to have an office, then have an office.
Well, and I think as evidence of that too, there's a lot of startups right now that I'm aware of that are specifically in the space of handling money across international borders, like how you can pay contractors, how you can pay people, but still get all the tax documentation, make sure you're up, compliant in both that country and your own, all that kind of stuff. And there's a rash of these kinds of companies popping up, which seems to indicate to me that, this is something that's coming, not something that's going away.
Well, are you familiar with Upwork?
Yeah.
I mean, look at Upwork. I mean, it's built on. I mean, that's the epitome of what we're talking about here, right? That there's a market. It's a global market, so U.S. people compete, right? And you either are competitive on price or skill, right? So if you're highly skilled, believe me, I go to yes, I can get better talent. Let's say in Eastern Europe for a great price, but there are things that even at a higher price, US talent is better for, right? So there's a global market for talent, and you see this. Just because someone's $5 an hour doesn't mean they're good, right? And if you see this, and this is, in my opinion, the future.
Yeah, and a couple things on Upwork. So, for example, I employ right now a copywriter who I found through Upwork, but she happens to be located right here in Salt Lake City, where I'm at. And, I think there's some misconceptions about Upwork that it's strictly there to kind of hire your $2 an hour, whoever from wherever. But I hire or pay this woman, and she makes a very reasonable American style salary through this website. But I was able to hire her through Upwork. And what Upwork offered me was basically just access to a network of professionals. Certainly when I tried to get one, we had the people from, Europe and Asia and places like this, all chipping in, trying to make proposals. But ultimately, I picked the person who was most capable, not the person who was the cheapest, right? So I think to your point, it's not really about hiring somebody just because they're cheaper. It's, again, back to that idea of stretching out dollars a little bit. And
sure.
It's funny too. Go ahead.
I paid $75,000 a year for my engineer on Upwork. Right. It's not, it is not the land of the $2 an hour person always. Right?
Yeah. And it's funny because I remember in my youth, when I was more of like a freelance designer, I tried competing on that platform. It was Elance back at the time, but it was, but when it was Elance, my big struggle as an American designer was fetching a fair rate because I was losing to all these guys that were willing to do the work for $5 or $10 an hour. And eventually, like you said, it's about being competitive on not just price, but skill, right? So I was able to maybe outskill the $10 guy. And so was able to sort of find my place. And ultimately, Elance never worked that well for me. But I remember having thoughts that it was sort of exploitative at the time to take advantage of these people in these small countries. But then what I sort of came to realize, and I think it's true now in outsourcing, and these I think are some of the stereotypes we're trying to overcome with outsourcing, is that ultimately it's a global market, right? I mean, people will only take the job for what they're going to take the job for, right? I mean, you're not being strong-armed into doing this work for $5 an hour, or $10 an hour, or whatever it is. I mean, you're choosing, you have the opportunity to choose to do the work for that amount of money, and you don't have to. And so when I had that sort of realization, it helped me recognize that it's not about exploitation, it's about providing opportunity. And, if people can do the work, or if they're as good or better, why shouldn't they have the opportunity?
Well, and like I brought up earlier, the dollar to peso exchange rate provides a lot more to someone in the Philippines than someone, it's stateside. So that website project I was working on a few years ago, I got a bid on Upwork to get that project done and finished, and it was about $50,000. If I were to go stateside with that and hire the same level of talent in the U.S., I'm paying a firm in the U.S. $150,000 to $200,000 to do the same project, just because the dollar goes so much further in a market like the Philippines. Well,
and like we're saying, there's an opportunity to get that website done for $1,200 too. But what are you getting?
Yeah,
it's no different than when I started. I was like, I'm going to go hire someone for $4 an hour, right? Guess what? I had all sorts of challenges, and it's the talent for the price. Like, I speak to people all the time that said, yes, I went the cheap route. I just want the good route. And good will always beat cheap. and, every step of the time. And people at the end of the day want to pay for quality. Now there's a quality balance you have to make, right? Are you getting a marginal benefit for paying that much more? But for the most part, if you pay up overseas, the answer is yes. You're getting, like you said, a lot of value. I mean, $50,000 is not a small website. It's not cheap, right? It's still $50,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's wholesale.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about it, that's $50,000. It's still $50,000, right? And you're just paying market. So you're not, people think like you're exploiting people. No, you're paying market. I have not negotiated one salary since I started my agency business. I do not negotiate. Even my e-commerce business, I don't negotiate. Tell me what you want. Either I say yes or no, right? You want to raise? If you think you're worth this on the market, fantastic. People, they're not, just because they make less money in our mind doesn't mean they make less money in their country, and it doesnn mean they're stupid.
Well,
they know what money is.
The housekeep that I hired when I lived there. Yes, I was paying her about $100 a month to do a lot of work, but that $100 was more than most of her friends were making at the time, doing whatever their normal job was. She was actually really well paid in comparison to some of her friends that were there. So I totally know how that works.
Well, and it's all a matter of perspective, right? I mean, for that woman, that was a good amount of money to make for that work. And she decided to engage in that work. She made good money and it was totally fair to her. She also had the opportunity to not take the work if she felt like it wasn't enough. So I think that there's some liberty there that, we need to, I guess, recognize the autonomy of people, right? I mean, I think we have this knack to apply these, some of our biases because we're here in the States or whatever. And we sort of, it feels like, well, here, I'm giving you this money, like just take the job, you're going to take the job because I'm this, big, boisterous American who told you have got this opportunity. But the reality is these people have the opportunity to choose the work that they want to do. And I think that that's, great to provide them these opportunities they might not otherwise have.
It's a pretty fluid market. Guess what? If they feel you're actually like oppressing them, they'll just get another job. It's not going to be that hard for them. There's a lot of opportunity given the arbitrage. There's a lot of opportunity for people. And, when you start to get into, higher end in their market hiring, I hired recently someone who ran a 2,000 person division. Believe me, this guy is not getting oppressed. I think he's a legitimate executive, right? And I hire people like this all the time. And, the prices of this is his rate. And he's getting an executive's rate. So it's just hard to wrap your head around because you translate that back to, well, this is poverty in the United States, but it's not necessarily poverty in another country if they're making, $10, $15 an hour.
Sure. So let's get back a little bit to this journey or how this works. So we've decided to make the decision to outsource. We've decided we're, just for sake of argument, we're in the need of somebody to help us with operations. We need to get our business in order. We need to have somebody start developing processes and things like that so that we can actually run a successful company. So I come to you and what's that process like? I mean, we sort of touched on some of the aspects of the interview process and how you hire, but what is the process like when I'm working with you to facilitate this?
Sure. So you and I would jump on a call, and just like you're recording the podcast, I record this call. We talk. I go through series of steps to determine exactly what you need, who you like to work with, what are the challenges, and really just understand the job, right? And then from there, I hand it off to my team. I actually, as far as I outsource the rest of the process to my team, and you're assigned my chief of staff manages the process. The recruiter, one of the recruiters will create a job description and get it back to you within 48 hours. You approve. And then, depending on what the role is, let's just say it's going to take 5 weeks to get somebody. And we spend the next 5 weeks searching for, interviewing, vetting people, all before you see someone. This isn't someone applied, one interview. Hey, they have a heartbeat. Let's give them to you. We really interview them for the fit. And it's going through 2 to 3 interviews before it gets to you. So it would be my initial recruiter, my chief of staff, then I review the videos, and then possibly me, depending on if I want to ask certain questions that I didn't feel were sufficient. If they pass through all three, and we're all looking for different things, they're looking for Filipino items plus the job, meeting the job in their experience. And I'm looking for American style filters. And once that goes, then it goes to the client. Client interviews, they say yay or nay. If they say yay, then we figure out a start date. If we say nay, tell me why. Then we, adjust the filters, and then we keep on finding. Typically speaking, it's the first person, to be honest with you.
So once this sort of virtual handshake has been facilitated by your team, what does the next step in the process look like? So, is onboarding going on between me and my Angelica? Or do you guys stay involved in this process to make sure things are going smoothly? Like, how does the next step go once we've made a decision to hire?
Sure. So you'll be assigned an onboarding manager. And these are actual professionals who do this. So I just hired someone who ran onboarding for a BPO. My other person ran training for a BPO. And so they will walk you, understand what tools are needed to make sure that's set up, understand the tasks, make sure expectations are set, make sure you have task management set up. If you have it, great. If not, we'll help you with that. If you don't have SOPs, we'll walk you through how to create it, and we'll help you with that. If you need dashboards for KPIs, we'll help you with that. As well, really just making sure you're set up for success from the beginning. Now, there are some clients, I just had one, where he's like, I'm good. Don't worry about it. Like, we're good. You found me the person. That's what I want. I want you there to help when needed, but otherwise I'm fine. Other clients need the whole treatment. It's really up to you. So,
yeah.
And it's really
it makes sense to me that somebody who might come to you for like an operations assistant, for example, may not know what they don't know, right? So in terms of getting set up and running, I guess that's where I'm asking about the guidance component is, if you're not aware of what you even need, will your operations professional, the person that you've employed now through your agency, be able to help, I guess, establish those the practices and the things like that maybe a more established or a more mature business might already have. But if you've been focused as a tactician who's really good at, I don't know, wood carving or whatever your thing is, but you don't know how to actually build out your business. Will this operations person be able to come in and sort of help that? Or do you need to provide the guidance to make it happen?
No. So it really depends like what you're hiring for. But let's just say you hire this person who's really chief of staff level. They can just run stuff. That's why you're hiring them. So you say, I don't have a project management process. I don't have a process for billing clients. So I bill clients. It's all over the place, right? They can put in structure to do that. And you can get people that have Six Sigma certification if you wanted, right? Six Sigma is an operations certification, primarily for manufacturing, but it is used in day-to-day business operations. You can get people like that. You can get people with a lot of project management experience. So many times they're falling back on a set of experiences, and they're going to step in and you're going to say, here's my universe. And this is what was done to me. I had processes, but Angelica came in and made them a lot better. Here's my universe. Let's go through. And I want you to, as time goes on, develop out the standard operating procedures, write them out, so, when we hire the next person, they just come in and understand what it is. We also will work with that person to make sure expectations are set over the next 90 days.
Okay. Yeah, no, it sounds pretty incredible. And I know even in my own business, we have some shortcomings as it comes to process, or more, I should say, more documentation of process than process, and that sort of thing. So as we're talking, about your Angelica, I'm getting wildly jealous that I needed my own Angelica to come in and just make sense of the pile that we work out of every day.
Well, wouldn't you like you working for your business? That's really what it comes down to. Why wouldn't you want you just in another country? This is, right. Think about it like that, right? The answer is yes, I would want me in another country.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. So, okay, somebody is on, you sort of had explained that this is kind of like you've hired a contractor more or less. So our relationship is with a contractor. So you mentioned though that it's full-time work. So say, for example, I've hired my Angelica, you guys have helped me find her. And so do I then now pay you, or is my relationship with Angelica?
Now, so we're the agency. Angelica works for me, right? And you're contracting with me as a U.S. company. And I'm paying the benefits. I'm making sure they get paid on time and doing all these things, for them, as well as giving them education opportunities and
Sure.
things of that nature, right?
So in terms of the financial relationship, it's with you here stateside. So there's no like weird tax stuff that we have to be aware of or any of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then in terms of terminating a relationship or something, or if it's just not working out, I suppose your team helps counsel us through that, make a decision and either move forward or not.
Yeah, exactly. So, what'll happen is a lot of times the business needs change, right? So I had a client who wanted a business manager. And then it turns out after 3 months of this person organizing his business, and was really happy about this, he really needed a development manager, different skill set, right? So we don't do that. So he said, okay, by the way, contract's going to end. This is the date. Great. We can tell the person or you can tell the person. Typically speaking, it's not, unless I haven't run into a contentious relationship because we're able to head those off, but we're happy to communicate, or you can, and then we come in to support whatever you want. And the day you stop is the day you stop paying. If there's money owed to you, you get money. If you want us to find someone else, we can find someone else. It's up to you.
Got it. So effectively, though, I mean, even though you basically handle all the financing, all the payroll, all this part, the relationship that we have with our Angelica is still one-on-one. Like we're not working through an intermediary. No. That person and I, for example, are running our operation together. That kind of thing. So you get sort of the benefit of the employee type relationship. It's just maybe facilitated or managed a little bit differently.
Right. And we're rolling out a process where we'll do quarterly reviews for you of that employee, so you don't have to do that. Right. And we can take more burden off of you. And if you need extra help, there's always someone else there to help. But day to day, you are managing the person as if they're your employee. Right. You just don't have a lot of the burden of the administration and all the back end stuff of running an international team.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's different. Look, it's different. I just built something because it helped me. And so I just said, well, why don't I start a business to help others? And I love it. It's funny because a lot of people talk about product market fit, as you both know, right? It's the right price. My e-commerce business, I have product market fit. I'm one of the largest winning favorite sites on the internet. But what I don't have is business entrepreneur fit. I'm just not an e-commerce guy. I realized that, through running the business, that I'm just the wrong guy for that business. I know plenty of e-commerce people, and I just won't be as good as they are, right? Yeah. And as opposed to this business where day in, day out, I just get to help people, and it's fun. And for me, it's fun, right? I get to talk to you. I get to talk to clients. I get to solve problems. I talk to people all the time who aren't ready for us, right? I don't view that as a waste. I view that as an investment. And I just like giving back in that way. So it's a real, a business entrepreneur fit for everybody. Just really think hard about it, because you'll see your business grow. My business is growing much faster when I'm the right person for the business than having a business that makes money and I'm just the wrong person.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So as we're starting to get towards the end here, I wanted to ask you just one more thing about sort of, I guess, the types of roles. So we went into, we've talked a lot about like operations type stuff, but I wonder specifically about like business growth type roles. So can you reach out to people that might help with sales and things like that? And how does that work, internationally? Like, I mean, are they aware of sort of American style sales customs and that sort of thing?
So in my experience, it depends. We've had some success with people who are doing appointment setting. That's a very common thing where people just set appointments for you. So, they'll pound the phones. In one customer we have is a manufacturer, and they have a customer list and they just want appointments for their salespeople. So we've set that up, for them. American style, like true sales, I think it depends on the industry, right? So for my business, we could have sales, like in the next 3 months, I'm going to hire a sales team and then most likely be based in the Philippines, but it fits the business. For other businesses, it may not, this is my opinion, it may not be the right fit. Appointment setting, someone just to get an appointment, not a problem. But to get that just American style sales, I have a bias towards, people may think, hey, this is another company overseas. Who are you? And I just think that for a lot of businesses, sales is not the right fit, that it should be an American salesperson. That's my opinion, my bias. Doesn't mean it's true. No,
but I think it makes sense. And I think you're right that it probably depends on industry, and it also probably depends how you do your sales, right? If it's one-on-one versus placing ads and doing marketing, kind of stuff that could be done behind the scenes, I suppose it would vary quite a bit. So maybe that's too broad of subject.
But my customer service, no, look at my customer service. I have an one of my e-commerce businesses is gift baskets. I had my head of customer service who's in the Philippines. She's amazing. I said, you're going to do corporate sales. Now, corporate sales can be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. I was nervous as can be. Not a hiccup. She, serviced the clients. Her largest sale was $90,000. Blew me away, right? Yeah. So, like I said, I have a bias towards this, but the market may be actually different.
Yeah. So we're kind of at that time. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and how they can reach out if they're in need of your service?
Sure. So go to extendyourteam.com and you'll be able to contact me through there. It's a bit about our services. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. Just shoot me a question. I love to talk to people. If I can give you advice on how to, even if you're not the right customer for us, I have no problem just saying, hey, think about these 5 things as you go on your own journey. So please contact me with me on LinkedIn or connect with me off the website. You can book a meeting directly or just shoot me an email.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with people, especially, this conversation has been enlightening, but I think it's really important as we, talk about outsourcing and things like that. There are sort of some negative stereotypes and trepidations that people have and things like that we need to work through and overcome. And I think that gets done through more discussion and more education about the process. So I really appreciate you taking the time to visit.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
All right.
Yeah. So thanks so much to everybody who tunes in this week and every week, and then we'll see y'all next time.